靖康，神，
燕康只会是下一个大虚。
您好像看到了不该看到的东西。
开皇国的劫难，也会是延康国的劫难。
天魔教难辞其咎。
Old Rulai offered a gentle smile to the monks gathered around him, remarking that the prince was no ordinary person, perhaps even destined to be the world's savior. Unlike the stubborn emperor, the crown prince walked a different path, and Rulai suggested that an envoy from him would be worth receiving. The Tao sect's Kunlun Jade Void Mountain, often called Jade Void Paradise, existed as a world apart, untouched by the chaos outside. Spring reigned eternal there, and it rivaled even Mount Meru in its immortal beauty. Up on the mountain, the old Tao master addressed his followers at a measured pace, observing that the cloud covering eternal peace was a warning, serious, yes, but not yet catastrophic. Compared to the fall of great ruins, it was a minor affair. He explained that the Tao sect had opposed the Eternal Peace Empire's reforms not out of selfishness, but for the sake of the Tao itself. Those reforms had shattered too many established rules and principles, making failure inevitable. It was a pity, he added, that the imperial preceptor's understanding had been too shallow to grasp the greater terror approaching. His gaze turned distant yet calm as he recalled how the imperial preceptor, in his youth, had once visited the Tao sect. Recognizing his extraordinary potential, the old Tao master had set aside sectarian bias and allowed him to study their sacred texts, hoping he would one day achieve greatness. That hope, however, had curdled into disappointment when the young man became imperial preceptor. Why? Because the Tao models itself after nature. Most of the Tao sect's experts sat in silent attentiveness. The old Tao master elaborated, because the Tao follows nature, Taoists could summon wind and rain but could not alter them, nor could they change the fundamental principles of the Tao. He claimed no prejudice against the Heavenly Devil cult. In fact, he admired some of their actions, but their paths diverged fundamentally. The Tao arose from nature, yet the Heavenly Devil cult sought to use the Tao to reshape nature itself. That was the core difference, and the reason they were called devils. A ripple of understanding passed through the assembled Taoists. Dan Yangzi spoke up, noting that he had observed Heavenly Devil cult disciples using spells to bring rain during droughts, charging farmers for the service. Others drilled wells for communities without water, smelted ore to forge farming tools, or hunted demon beasts for payment. All of these, he admitted, seemed to go against the natural order the Tao originated from changing nature itself. The old Tao master nodded, explaining that using the Tao's arts for the common people inevitably meant altering and even destroying nature. To change nature was to change the great Tao itself. The Heavenly Devil cult's teachings were therefore fundamentally wrong, steering them onto the devil's path. Another of their principles, to act straightforwardly and follow nature's course, was merely a justification for letting desires run wild and doing as one pleased. If that wasn't devilish behavior, what was? He sighed heavily, lamenting that the imperial preceptor had been too deeply influenced by these ideas, applying Heavenly Devil cult ideology to governance. The disasters that had befallen great ruins would soon visit Eternal Peace Empire as well, a punishment from heaven. Still, he acknowledged, the common people bore no guilt. His tone softened as he instructed his followers to descend from the mountain. The heavenly punishment invited by the emperor and imperial preceptor should not fall upon innocent civilians. They were to go among the people, help those in need, and save as many as possible. Along the way, they might also identify promising young individuals to recruit into the Tao sect's ranks. The experts acknowledged the command and departed down the mountain. Alone now, the old Tao master gazed up at the cloud hovering over Eternal Peace Empire. The people shouldn't suffer for this, he murmured. If the imperial preceptor and emperor persisted stubbornly in their wrong path, the Tao sect would have no choice but to intervene in the mortal world. Meanwhile, Qin Mu reached out to the left and right guardians, conveying his instructions. They were to assist the emperor with disaster relief and work to disperse the ominous cloud. Disciples should be sent south to help salvage frozen crops and replant where possible. Many would perish in this snow disaster, so they must do their utmost to save lives. He also warned them to remain vigilant. Such calamities inevitably bred unrest, and the world would not stay peaceful. The guardians acknowledged the order, but Left Guardian Ning Daokai hesitated, asking what identity they should assume when helping the emperor, and whether they should accept any titles offered. Qin Mu considered briefly before responding. They should assist openly as members of the sacred cult. If the emperor granted them titles, they could accept. If he could tolerate the imperial preceptor, he could tolerate them as well. They were part of Eternal Peace Empire, after all, with no need for paranoia. He paused, then added that even as the world descended into chaos, many divine art practitioners accustomed to their lofty positions would never stoop to serving ordinary people in need, as the Heavenly Devil cult did. The Imperial Preceptor had once remarked that killing one batch of dissenters only spawned another, a statement Qin Mu had thought merely cynical, but now recognized as truth. Looking up at the dark cloud, he offered a wry, humorless smile. This snow and cloud had created a nation-threatening disaster, yet people still debated what was devilish and what wasn't. Not once did they consider helping the common folk. They were probably too used to their elevated status, viewing assistance to ordinary people as beneath them and therefore as devil's work. He shook his head, observing that such people were plentiful, with extremists among them who might seize this opportunity to rebel or even target the Heavenly Saint cult. The Guardians must be careful. The two assured him that their cult had not survived this long by being undeserving of its reputation, even against the so-called orthodox path. With that, they bowed and departed. Qin Mu composed himself, took one last look at the cloud above Eternal Peace Empire, then shook his head and returned to the Imperial College. Hu Linga, the Dragon Shalin, and Juqian Devil King were already waiting aboard the ship. He suggested they buy New Year's goods on the way back to the village, suspecting there might be nothing left in Border Dragon City. With Eternal Peace Empire in such a precarious state, merchants would likely be scarce there. Juqian Devil King glanced up at the sky and chuckled ominously, observing that their world was in serious trouble. This heavy snow and dark cloud seemed to blanket the entire empire. Qin Mu's interest was piqued, and he politely asked if the Devil King had any insights to share. The Devil King immediately adopted an arrogant posture, demanding that Qin Mu kneel and lick his toes before he would reveal anything. Qin Mu simply glanced at Hu Linga. She opened a compartment in the eight-armed god statue's chest, settled inside, and took control. Juqian Devil King found himself forced to kneel and stretch out his tongue toward Qin Mu's shoes. He cried out in protest a devil could be killed but not humiliated. Until he finally capitulated and agreed to talk. Qin Mu raised his hand, and Hu Linga released her control. Juqian Devil King sprang up, spat indignantly, and decided it was wiser to cooperate with the demon fox than to continue suffering such indignities. Wiping his mouth, he sneered that this meteorological phenomenon was the work of a god and no ordinary one at that. If his true body were present, he could unleash similar devastation and wipe out the entire human race, transforming this world into a new Juqian. However, the god behind this attack seemed relatively restrained, delivering only a gentle warning rather than a ruthless blow. The snow and cloud were merely that, a warning. Qin Mu was stunned. A gentle warning? This gentle warning would likely kill millions who couldn't survive the winter. His thoughts drifted to great ruins, where the people had been abandoned and despised due to a god and devil's decree. If gods and devils refused to die, trouble would never end, Qin Mu said coldly. High above the clouds, the Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor stood gazing at the vast cloud blanketing the empire, ruefully echoing similar sentiments to his wife. If gods and devils didn't die, trouble would never cease. His wife, an ordinary-looking palace maid who had become his companion, possessed sharp insight. She asked if he hadn't returned this time because he believed the Emperor could resolve this natural disaster. Even if the Emperor couldn't, the Imperial Preceptor replied with a smile, someone else would solve it for him. There was no need for his return. Instead, they would journey to the little jade capital in the sky. His wife looked up at the sky, finding the name Beautiful Jade Capital, a city of jade where immortals dwelled, untouched by mortal concerns. Once, the Imperial Preceptor mused, wanderers had emerged from this mysterious little jade capital to oppose him, but had failed. Before dying, he had urged the Imperial Preceptor to visit Little Jade Capital, suggesting he might find something there to change his perspective. Now, finally, he had come. Before them, a fairy tale paradise materialized faintly through the mist. Qin Mu's treasure ship stopped at Fen Prefecture, where he and Hu Linga purchased New Year's goods until the ship was full. Fen Prefecture remained relatively peaceful. The magistrate had gathered divine art practitioners to create spirit weapons and boarded a flying ship to disperse the cloud overhead. Sunlight already pierced through in some areas, though the melting snow brought even more biting cold. Fen Prefecture was known for its strong alcohol, which people normally drank to ward off cold. Despite the chill, many villagers still ventured up mountains to chop firewood. Prices had inflated dramatically, though Qin Mu's wealth insulated him from the difference. Hu Linga calculated and informed him that prices had multiplied. Qin Mu was slightly taken aback. This was sooner than expected. Stabilizing prices was the Minister of Revenue's responsibility, not theirs. Once the cloud dispersed and the court delivered disaster relief, the north should stabilize. He worried more about those who might deliberately create chaos. They hadn't bought enough in Fen Prefecture, so the ship stopped again at Lai Prefecture, where prices had also multiplied. Many merchants hoarded goods, waiting for further inflation to maximize profits. The magistrate had already begun executing such merchants as examples in these troubled times. After 2 or 3 days, they reached Jing Prefecture, not far from great ruins around 10,000 miles away, with much of the dark cloud now pierced by sunlight. Here, with more land and fewer people, chaos had erupted. Mountain bandits appeared, robbing wealthy families. Many poor people lay frozen to death on the roads beside extinguished fire pits. Refugees trudged through ice and snow, huddled together as they crossed frozen rivers heading south, hoping to find warmth. When someone fell behind, no one spoke. They would squat down, seeking the tiniest warmth, and never rise again. Accumulated river water had formed massive ice mountains that creaked ominously, shedding huge chunks. Qin Mu noticed young people proficient in spells among the refugees, caring for the migrants. He landed his ship on the frozen surface and inquired they were disciples of the Heavenly Devil cult. He told them to advise the people to stop seeking warmer climates. Everywhere was frozen. They wouldn't listen, one disciple replied, removing his face mask to reveal dark red skin against the whistling cold wind. If these people stopped, they would lose all hope. As long as they kept walking, hope remained that they might find warmth somewhere. Qin Mu was struck silent. He distributed warming New Year's goods to the disciples for the suffering people, warning them that with the entire empire frozen, demons and monsters would also emerge seeking food. They must be careful. He didn't stay long in Jing Prefecture. The treasure ship rose again, heading toward great ruins. Eternal Peace Empire's winter grew outrageously colder with each passing day. Soon, numerous icicles hung from the treasure ship, slowing it considerably while medicinal stone consumption increased dramatically. Every few thousand miles, Qin Mu had to land and knock off the icicles to regain speed. Hu Linga stood by the pill furnace, feeding medicinal stones while Qin Mu steered low to the ground, surrounding himself with vermilion bird vital qi for warmth. The farther west they traveled, the more desolate the landscape became and the more refugees and frozen corpses lined the roads. In these sparsely populated areas with fewer divine art practitioners, thick dark clouds still blocked the sun in many places, making conditions even worse. The snow disaster's impact far exceeded Qin Mu's expectations. The death toll surpassed his estimates, and the cold only intensified. Suddenly, flames burst from the sky as a massive demonic snake slithered through clouds, spewing fire to push back the cold. Demonic aura poured from the creature. Qin Mu's heart leaped. He immediately urged the treasure ship higher, driving into the clouds. A flirtatious-looking man stood on the snake's head, puzzled at having lost sight of the boy's ship. He called for Sister Chiao to release her insects. Countless insects swarmed from a woman standing on a cloud of them. At her direction, they scattered in all directions, tunneling through the clouds. Qin Mu's ship suddenly encountered a golden insect, which halted in apparent shock at the sight. Qin Mu stabbed with his finger, his vital qi becoming sword qi, but it merely clinked against the insect's body without killing it. Instead, the creature expanded to nearly 3 yards and pounced squeaking. Qin Mu drew Junior Protector Sword from his Dao Tai sack, slicing the insect in two. Immediately, a chuckle reached him. The Heavenly Devil cult master had been found. He looked toward the voice and saw the clouds behind him reddening. Realizing danger, he shouted for Hu Linga to max out all 3 pill furnaces. Flames erupted, sweeping through the cloud and striking the ship's bow. Qin Mu grabbed the helm to avoid being thrown as the ship swayed violently, nearly falling from the sky. The bronze beasts below spewed fire at maximum power, dramatically increasing speed. Within moments, they burst from the cloud into open air. The cold hit like a physical force. Qin Mu shivered violently, icicles forming on his face and hands as his vermilion bird vital qi cooled. A deafening boom marked the ship surpassing the speed of sound. Hu Linga shut down the lower pill furnaces, reporting they had few medicinal stones left. Qin Mu looked back to see flames pouring from clouds as the massive snake emerged, followed by gleaming insects, all much slower than the treasure ship. He calmed himself and went below to assess their supplies. Almost all baskets were empty except for 1.5. They had bought over a dozen baskets of medicinal stones, sufficient for reaching great ruins, but repeated stops to melt icicles had depleted their stock. Hu Linga warned that with full power, they wouldn't make it to great ruins. Suddenly, violent tremors shook the ship. Qin Mu moved toward the hold door, but as he opened it, a concentrated series of impacts rang out. Over a dozen flying swords stabbed into the hold. He pushed through to see a sword pellet spinning in the sky, the deck and hold filled with trembling swords trying to pull free. He raised his hand in hack sword form, Junior Protector sword splitting the pellet. It exploded, 100 broken swords falling from the sky. A voice praised his superb sword skill. Qin Mu looked to see a young scholar running toward them across the sky at astonishing speed, warning that many Dao friends awaited ahead. Qin Mu's gaze sharpened, he extended his hand, and Junior Protector sword swept toward the scholar with cold light. The man welcomed it with loose sleeves, but when the sword light pierced through, he flickered surprise and flicked his fingers. Another divine art burst forth, transforming into flaming sparrows that collided with the sword. Qin Mu's sword finger whirled into spiral sword form, shredding the sparrows and heating Junior Protector sword red hot. The sword continued spinning around the scholar until he stood stripped bare. The scholar immediately stopped and distanced himself. Qin Mu, sensing his vital chi thread reaching maximum range, withdrew the sword sheath and shook it. It transformed into a fish dragon that swallowed the returning Junior Protector sword. A Buddha's name echoed from above. Qin Mu looked up to blinding sunlight, within which a huge golden Buddha descended directly toward the ship. His vital chi burst forth as Junior Protector sword flew again in drill sword form, stabbing at the descending Buddha. A shout of Vajra unbeatable came from midair, and Qin Mu felt his drill sword form slow impossibly. Immense pressure bore down through his body onto the ship, his bones creaked, and the vessel groaned, sinking lower. This monk was an expert. Qin Mu grunted, body trembling as he transformed into Mars Sovereign with Bull's head standing on 2 dragons. Overlord Body 3 Elixir technique circulated according to Mars Fire Marquis True technique, multiplying his vital chi to counter the pressure. The third bull's eye in his brow opened, shooting a beam upward. A grunt from above the huge sun behind the Buddha's head was pierced and shattered. The Buddha vanished, revealing a young monk. Pressure lessened as blazing fire flowed through the ship, melting icicles. Speed increased exponentially as they entered the cloud layer, continuing forward. The tall, sturdy monk stood on one leg, 9-ringed staff in hand, blood dripping from his other leg. He had used Vajra unbeatable technique to meet drill sword form head-on, but the leg blocking that sword move was mangled. The technique couldn't fully defend against drill sword form. When Qin Mu transformed into Mars Sovereign and destroyed the Buddha form, the monk had been forced to retreat. Spotting the ship, the monk exerted himself to sprint across clouds, white lotuses blooming beneath each footstep for purchase, propelling him forward with power. Qin Mu looked back to see the monk chasing quickly, clearly no ordinary pursuer. Long Jianan and the woman named Qiu were both 7 stars realm practitioners. This scholar and young monk were equally extraordinary. The scholar had lost his sword pellet but still defended barehanded against Junior Protector sword, emerging uninjured despite torn clothes. Junior Protector sword was a first-ranking official's blade, though Qin Mu couldn't unleash its full power. Its sharpness was immense. For the scholar to protect his body so well spoke to his strength. The tall monk was equally formidable, able to take drill sword form head-on with only 1 foot injured. If Qin Mu hadn't identified the sun behind his head as Vajra unbeatable technique's weak point, the ship would have been crushed. Though not 7 stars realm experts, both were at 6 directions realm peak. The monk's injured leg didn't slow him much, he seemed to be slowly gaining. Qin Mu ordered more speed, and Hu Linga complied, gradually distancing them. When the monk saw the ship pulling away, he stopped, admiring its speed. Qin Mu's heart sank. The monk and scholar had both stopped chasing, confident he couldn't escape their ambush, meaning more experts lay ahead. The ship slowed again, few medicinal stones remained, and full power would waste them before reaching Great Ruins. Once beyond the cloud-covered area, they'd enter Great Ruins territory, just over 1,000 miles from the village. Qin Mu dispersed Mars Sovereign form and surveyed from the bow, still no end to the cloud sea. Speed remained high, cold bearable, when he noticed strange sights about a dozen miles away, colorful lights whirling continuously, shining in all directions. As they approached, he saw the lights came from pillars of ice like huge swords, refracting sunlight dazzlingly. Each was extremely thick, requiring dozens to embrace. They seemed to grow from the cloud sea but spun upright unnaturally, clearly not natural formations. Qin Mu's expression shifted as he steered hard right. The metal ship tilted dramatically, deck nearly vertical, sliding in a wide arc past the ice pillars. He shouted for full power despite Hu Linga's protests about running out of stones. Suddenly, the ice swords moved as if pulled by a giant with multiple arms, whistling as they slashed toward the ship. Speed increased as Qin Mu dodged. Looking back, he saw a woman in blue walking among the swords, icy cold and beautiful. Her water-blue vital chi had transformed into over a dozen arms performing stabbing movements, the ice swords following accordingly. Lucky she can't catch up, Qinmu thought, but then her speed suddenly increased as she sprinted through clouds, arms still flailing. A huge boom came from beneath the ship, which tumbled violently in the sky, nearly throwing him off. He clung desperately to the helm until the ship steadied. Ice swords surrounded them now, emerging from the cloud surface. The ship had collided with one earlier, shattering it but damaging the vessel badly. This woman's ability exceeded even the monks, and her speed was tremendous. Qinmu maneuvered to avoid the growing ice swords, but more kept emerging. He angrily summoned Duqian Devil King. The Devil King emerged lazily, expression clearly stating his unwillingness to help. Qinmu's anger flared. Did he want to kneel and lick toes again? If not, he'd better help. Duqian Devil King sneered but approached, insisting on being asked politely as ruler of Duqian. Veins bulging on Qinmu's forehead, he forced out a please. Pleased, Duqian Devil King smiled. There would come a day when Qinmu lowered his head, but seeing Qinmu about to explode, he quickly hid his smile and began urgent devil language. The 8-armed, four-faced Devil King raised arms high. A black mirror appeared above the ship, shining a thick pillar of black light onto the cloud sea like ink poured into water. Black fog swept in all directions, covering over a dozen miles, including the blue-dressed woman. Within the black smoke, she grunted, her heart disordered. Impure thoughts poured forth. Even a crystalline Dao heart couldn't withstand such corruption. Her secrets of hatred parting heavenly sword had separated passion and hatred, suppressing impure thoughts to maintain transparent sword heart. Now contaminated by ink, inner devils filled her with desires. Duqian Devil King sighed regretfully. With enough time, he could train this icy woman to lick his toes in half a day. Buddhist chants came through the devil fog as the sturdy monk arrived, using his 9-ringed staff without hesitation. Light burst forth, splitting and driving away the fog. As it cleared, he suddenly found a hot figure falling into his arms, the icy woman from Passion Parting Palace, now half undressed and nearly naked. His Buddhist heart nearly collapsed. He pushed her away immediately, shouting for Senior Sister Yu to wake from the devil path spell. Yu, shouted awake by his Buddha voice, had her inner devil dispersed. Face beet red, she covered herself, embarrassed at having fallen to devil spells and let them escape. Monk Bankai shook his staff, golden ring swaying to help suppress her heart devil, assuring that Heavenly Devil Cult Master Qinmu was naturally proficient in bewitching spells, but with him present, the devil couldn't overdo it. Yu shook her head. His ship was too fast, catching him would be difficult. Behind them, Scholar Lan Yu caught up, assuring them Qinmu couldn't escape. Almost all practitioners of their standing had joined the hunt, laying an inescapable net. Monk Bankai was about to respond when a swarm of insects surged toward them, a huge red snake controlling demon gas slithering among them. Lan Yu identified them as Senior Sister Qiu Yu from Three Wonder Castle and Dragon Rider Sect's young master Long Jianan, noting Long Jianan's queer, nasty temper. He liked men and had chased Lan Yu for half a day upon seeing his handsome face. Better not meet him. Far away, countless sword lights crisscrossed in the clouds, dazzlingly bright. Bankai's eyes lit up. Some sword sect expert had intercepted the Heavenly Devil Cult Master. They hurried over. A figure jumped through clouds like an ape, chasing the treasure ship. Lan Yu recognized Duke Ape Sword Sect's young swordsman Yuan Shan, calling out for joint encirclement. Yuan Shan stopped, waiting for them to catch up. The Heavenly Devil Cult Master wielded a treasure sword that had destroyed his sword pellet. His ship was also strange, made of metal, not wood, withstanding thousands of sword stabs. Yu confirmed it was black iron when it collided with hatred parting ice sword. The ice shattered while the ship remained intact. An iron-shelled ship flying through the sky? They exchanged bewildered glances. How could something so heavy fly? Lan Yu glanced behind, expression changing. Long Jianan was coming. They should leave quickly. Qinmu had shaken Yuan Shan off and surveyed his ship's damage. Thousands of holes punctured by flying swords leaked air everywhere. Yuan Shan from Duke Ape Sword Sect had been nimble with sharp sword skills, but the black iron hull had proven sturdy enough. However, air leaking from the hold slowed them considerably. The bow's collision with an ice sword had created a huge opening. Wind poured in at full speed, further reducing velocity. If he could stop, he could fix it in half a day, but his pursuers wouldn't allow that. Luckily they were near great ruins now. Hu Linga reported from below that one bronze beast's head had been severed. Was that important? Qinmu reassured her it wasn't. Landing would just be a little bumpy. The little fox popped her head out, asking how bumpy, then announced they were out of medicinal stones. The ship was gradually descending. Qin Mu immediately decided to wake the pig. It was time for him to contribute. Juqian Devil King erupted in fury at being called a pig, insisting he'd already contributed. Hu Linga rolled her eyes. They weren't talking about him, but Fatty Dragon. The dragon Qilin slowly woke and crawled out, belly dragging, grumbling about being called Big Dragon just days ago. Qin Mu worried if he could even fly. He quickly stored all New Year's goods in his Dao Tai sack and grabbed Juqian Devil King, trying to stuff him in. The sack's mouth wasn't wide enough, only a leg fit. Considering dismantling the devil god's body, he was met with angry protests. His consciousness resided in this body. Dismantling would destroy it. Didn't he know to light up the Dao Tai markings with vital qi? Qin Mu's eyes brightened. His vital qi poured out, illuminating the markings. Suddenly the opening expanded into a huge Dao Tai mouth, 20 yards wide, swallowing Juqian Devil King whole. Much easier, Qin Mu noted with surprise and delight, tying the sack to his waist. He jumped onto the dragon Qilin's back with Hu Linga, shouting to abandon ship. Fire clouds formed beneath the Qilin's feet as they rose, the ship sinking into clouds and falling. The Qilin commented simple-mindedly that they seemed heavier, much harder to fly than before. Hu Linga retorted that he was the fat one. If he kept it up, the elders in young master's family would slaughter him for New Year's. Below, the treasure ship crashed into a mountain and shattered. 3 pill furnaces exploded in succession, black iron and copper fragments flying everywhere. Violent impact destroyed part of the forest, a huge mushroom cloud of black smoke billowing above. Hu Linga jumped in shock. Young master had said the descent would be slightly bumpy. Qin Mu confirmed it would be. He shouted for Fatty Dragon to run faster or be eaten for New Year's. The dragon Qilin shuddered and sprinted with all might, fire clouds intensifying beneath his feet, speed increasing exponentially, but after a dozen miles, he panted endlessly. Suddenly, dozens of 8-cornered mirrors rose from a mountain peak below, whirling around them. Each expanded to 3 yards radius, now 300 yards away. The dragon Qilin descended, but mirrors blocked that path too and above as well. Sword lights flew from the mountain, striking mirrors and reflecting onto others. More sword lights came, increasing until they formed an intensely concentrated net. Even more flew from the peak. Qin Mu's hair stood on end, a sword formation using mirrors to reflect and concentrate sword light with almost no waste. But destroying the mirrors would break it. He raised his hand, Junior Protector sword slashing toward a mirror. Countless sword lights struck it instead, blowing it away. The sword tumbled into the forest below. His cultivation far exceeds mine, probably 6 directions or 7 stars realm, Qin Mu thought grimly. The dragon Qilin's movement space shrank rapidly. Suddenly the Qilin roared, the sound like 10,000 heavenly thunders exploding simultaneously, shattering all mirrors in the sky. Without the mirrors, the dense sword net instantly vanished. An astonished voice came from below. Such a powerful brute, with such strong ability. The dragon Qilin, offended by the brute, spewed flames toward the peak. A sword light flew aside, a human and sword as one, avoiding the attack. The peak exploded, fire clouds surging forth, separating human and sword and throwing them into the forest.